Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of SafeDefend Live. We got our guy back. We got Jeff back, albeit 2 a.m. in the morning. Got away for a few days with the family, and I know your flights got delayed. Everything that's normal now in air travel, right? But glad you're back home in Kansas City area and had some time to unwind, my friend.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Much needed. Had a great time, but work's crazy busy right now, so there's always a trade off. But
Yeah.
it is a crazy time right now.
Well, it's good to be able to recharge the batteries. So I'm glad you had the time to do that.
Yes.
While you were out for now, Jeff's definition of being out in most people's is a little different. He still had his phone and still had his computer and still did calls and stuff. So we'll call it a semi getaway for a few days. But anyway,
there's worse places to work from than on vacation. So
that's right.
If you got to work, do it on vacation.
That's right. But a lot of things, unfortunately, more shooting situations occurred this week. We talked, Dave and I talked a little bit last week about the situation in Tulsa. More details have came out in that scenario as well. More details today. I was just reading an updated story regarding the school chief of police and the Uvalde shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all still right there, but kind of want to break some of those things down. What do you want to lead with? I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we had another workplace violence situation yesterday where we had a guy go into his workplace, and I haven't seen all the details come out, but I can almost guarantee you that it was related to some sort of HR issue or he had some direct issue against that company, and went back in, shot and killed 3 people, injured another, including a state trooper, and he was arrested. Workplace is violence is almost more prevalent than not almost. It's more prevalent than the school side.
It is,
and
the schools. I say the school shootings are like an airplane going down. When it happens, you're like, oh my Lord, yeah, it's mass numbers usually. The children factor obviously plays a part in that. But yeah, workplace violence is even higher than inside our public schools, which are at an all-time high.
And you put the mental health crisis that we're facing. We've talked about that frequently on this program, and but it just has such a bearing, right? On everything that's going on. And you get someone that's about to get fired, or you get someone that had a relationship with somebody at the workplace and that ended, or you get any number of issues, and we're seeing more and more individuals who feel the best response is to react with violence. And and then on a school note, we had in Gadsden, Alabama yesterday, we had an SRO have a guy trying to break into the school. Apparently it looks like they got in a wrestling match. The guy tried to get his gun, and the SRO ended up shooting the person at the school.
Yep.
This is now we're beyond daily because we're getting multiples a day now instead of just one a day.
Yeah, and I guess that's and I think that goes back, Jeff, to you and I have talked about this publicly, but also just in private conversations. Mental health is at an all-time low right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just and I think that's got to be a big part of the solution, right? I mean, I think we've got to equip and prepare people to know what to look for and how to be aware, but also we've got to create opportunities for people to feel like that there is a different option than an act of violence. You're never going to eliminate that because unfortunately human beings do things that, to be quite frank, are atrocious. And, so we've got to, that's a reality. Hence the reason why we've got to be doing everything we can to prepare for those things, to mitigate as much as we can, and to constantly be looking for better ways to address those issues, and also have honest conversations about what's really needs to happen and what really do we need to invest to make sure that our kids and our employees are safe, whether they're in a private business, a school, a church, synagogue. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, wherever you're at, we've got to make sure.
Yeah, and we're so far gone past the anomaly stage of any of this. These are no longer outliers. This is day to day, and when you look at how we need to respond, there's just not one answer, right? It's such a multi-layered response, but it has got to start with a proactive approach. You've got to be proactive, supporting from the mental health side, whether that's more resources in our community, in our schools, available to individuals, work in the workplace, being able to identify, recognize, and support those that may be struggling in some areas and could use some help. Now you run the HIPAA and you run a lot of other issues that you've got to navigate, but you need a toolbox to be able to help respond and you keep all your employees safe and supported.
Right.
In addition, you've got to have some sort of ability to respond in the crisis as well. We're just we just keep throwing money at cameras and door locks and it's just not working. And so, being able to empower your staff to be able to, God forbid, if we get to that point, how do we manage that crisis once it gets to a crisis level? And, it's time to stop, wishing, and time to stop saying, hey, I hope somebody else is going to take care of this. We're at a critical juncture where our kids, our spouses, our anybody that heads out of the home that day, is more at risk than ever. And again, we talk about this. We can't live in fear, but we definitely have to be smarter than we are right now about how to keep everybody safe.
Well, and we've talked about over the past few weeks the need for, to your point, the need for local communities, the citizens of local communities. It can't just be put on the employer's desk. It can't just be put on the superintendent's desk at a school. I mean, it's got to be the members in my opinion, these members in these communities that say, listen, we know we know we're vulnerable. We know we've got to protect ourselves. How do we do that? What does it look like? How much is it going to cost? Having those kind of conversations. I mean, I think, I don't think there's ever been a school that didn't see the value in SafeDefend. I don't think there's ever been a business you've been in that didn't see the value of SafeDefend. I really don't.
No, that's true.
But I think every time or most times what prevents people and where they end up with more cameras or more door locks or more stuff is they feel like with budgets that they have, that's all they can do. And I do think some people make those decisions. And I think what's weird about that is, and I'll bring this up, I know locally we got just south of $1 million in a town of 11,000 people for our schools in COVID relief money to be used as the schools see fit, basically.
Right.
And so there has been money put out there. Then it comes down to priorities. It comes down to what. Now, I'm not saying, and I want to be really clear about this, I am not saying that superintendents that don't use SafeDefend or don't do anything with that money don't care about their kids or don't. That's not what I'm saying.
Sure.
What I'm simply saying is I think we've got to have real honest conversations about where we're going to spend this money. I talked to a leader of an organization, and they said, well, what are we going to cut? And I said, does it really matter? I mean, if we're talking about the safety of human life, I want somebody to explain to me logically what's more important than that.
Right.
And so I think we got to have those hard conversations.
Well, it comes down to even just such a base level of your students can't learn and your teachers can't teach if they don't feel safe.
Right.
And for a long time, we used to say, teachers don't necessarily feel unsafe, but they feel vulnerable. More and more we are hearing over and over again, teachers now feel unsafe.
100%.
And parents feel that it's not safe to send their kids to school in so many areas. And this is not This is not just a middle class problem, middle class school district problem. This is not an urban problem. This is a an educational system problem that we're in the midst of now. We have moved from vulnerable to vulnerable and unsafe. And
yeah.
And so I do think that there is some relief coming from the Fed side. That we've seen some articles lately that they're pushing. And I was out of town, so if something transpired while I was gone, I apologize.
There was more stuff this past week that I've read 2 or 3 different stories about that. Yeah.
But they're pushing to all the leftover COVID money, from the ESSER, from everything else to be sent and be allowed to be pushed towards school safety. That should free up some funds. We do have some school districts that I know money's tight, and I know that's always a challenge. And again, to your point, it comes back to priority, right? What's our priority? Because when we make something the top priority, we can find the money to get it done. I can't speak for every community, and this is a complete generalization, but bond issues and opportunities to increase revenue from the community, probably for school safety, has probably never been stronger than it is right now. Getting community support and getting the ability to find ways to get that done. We have a ton of schools that I know of that we're working with that have recently put in bond issues, and you make school safety the top priority in that bond issue. I don't care if you have kids in the district or not. That's a hard one to argue with. And
it is.
So, the challenge is always the budget, but also it's not the budget; it's the priority. Where you?
Well, I think the priority of the communities
right
leads to the challenge of the budget. I think if we sit down, I've used this example in the past. I mean, and again, I'm not criticizing these schools, but there's schools all over the country that community members make decisions to spend millions of dollars to upgrade sporting facilities. Well, not that that's not important. It is. It's important. There's economic benefit from that for the communities they're in. I get all that. But again, if you're prioritizing against safety, and this isn't the little boy that cried wolf here. I mean, we have more active shooters, more acts of violence, even if they're not active shooters. We've talked about this. We've had districts where teachers were brutally assaulted by individuals.
Yes.
Without weapons.
Yes.
I mean, so this isn't, like I said, the little boy crying wolf. I mean, this is a real world horrific problem that we're facing in our nation right now. And, I'll let the politicians debate the issues that seem to be so popular there, but I know this, and I will say this: if we're waiting for legislation to fix this, it's not going to fix it. I mean, not one of these incidents has a weapon driven to the school, got out of the car by itself, went in the building, and started shooting itself. And so we've got, that's a whole different conversation. People can have that debate. That's fine. But if we're waiting for that to fix it, that is not going to fix this.
Well, in all honesty, no matter what side you fall on the fence, when have politicians really ever fixed anything?
I'm 56 years old. I've never seen it once in my lifetime. So we've got to.
They throw money at things a lot, but they don't really fix it. They don't always fix anything. So
hold great press conferences.
Yeah.
But I just think there's, the parents, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the siblings, they've got to rise up in their communities in a positive way and go become resources. Go get involved with your local communities to say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make not just schools, but how are we going to make our communities safer? So that if, God forbid, something like this does happen, I've said this, and this is with all due respect to law enforcement. You know how I feel about law enforcement. I have the utmost respect for the men and women that put on the uniform every day and go out there and do very dangerous work. 95% of their time, they are handling non-violent situations.
99% of the time, probably.
99%. And then we're asking them to turn into a combat troop.
Right.
It's not just on buildings. It's not just, I mean, we've got that fixed. I mean, we've got the solution for that, in my opinion. SafeDefend does. But it's what are we doing to make sure training's done correctly? Because then you get in the whole debate about, well, we don't want to traumatize people and we don't want to do, well, you know what? There's
ways to accomplish it without traumatizing people.
100%.
Yes.
And so, but we've got to have those conversations and say, no, we're going to set up training with our emergency response teams. We're going to set up training with our first responders for, God forbid, what usually is always there, which is at best injury, at worst fatalities in these situations. The situation happened in Tulsa, at the hospital administrative building. I don't know if you know this or not, but Dave had two nieces that worked at that hospital.
I did, yeah.
And my business partner, Dave Evans. But, I don't know that there was anything law enforcement could have done different as far as getting there. I know there was a sergeant first class that held a door shut and kept the shooter out and gave up his own life with an armed gunman holding the door to keep him out.
Wow. Yeah.
So others could get out the back of the building. So, and I'm tired of celebrating heroes. I love to celebrate heroes. Unfortunately, most times we celebrate them after they've been murdered.
Right.
And this gentleman is an absolute hero, what he did that day. But we've got to come up with this. In this case, this gentleman had recently had surgery, was upset with the doctor over medications, and goes in there and starts killing people.
Well, hospitals have been vulnerable. There have been numerous shootings at hospitals.
Vulnerable.
I mean, just unfortunately, the public domain is a risky environment right now.
Very risky.
It's a risky environment right now. And
I mean, you go in. I mean, we were in a restaurant this week, me and a few of my buddies, just having lunch, and there was a gentleman that got upset over something that happened in the restaurant. I mean, like over the top upset. And it was to the point where I know there were at least a couple of us sitting at our table. We were giving him all of our attention. And in days past, I wouldn't even have thought of somebody over something going wrong with an order on food, getting to the point of violence. But that's a reality. Doesn't matter where you're at, what you're doing. It's a reality.
And, and back to the school issue, we have talked to probably more teachers in the last 3 weeks from school districts, not quite across the country, but across multiple states. And this is the first time we've really had teachers step up and talk about how scared, how angry, how frustrated they are. Teachers have always been focused on teaching, right? And that's their job. That's what we want them to be able to be focused on and stay focused on. But it's coming down, and and I would assume this is going to apply in the workplace too. People are scared and angry.
Well, I'm going to tell you, this week, a local attorney, I had a meeting with him, and he had seen one of our Facebook Lives. And he said, let me tell you what just happened. He goes, I listened to you. He's talking to me. So I heard you say a couple of weeks ago that teachers don't want to be put in a place where they have to use a weapon, right? Because there's always the talk. One of the first things you always hear is, we got to arm the teachers. Well, okay. As an expert, I've learned through you as an expert, doesn't work. Doesn't work for a variety of reasons.
Tons of challenges with that.
But this teacher that he shared, there was two teachers talking. He overheard the conversation, and this is how the conversation went. I couldn't shoot a student. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. I don't want to be armed. These were the comments that are being made. And he looked me dead in the eye and he goes, Phil, I thought you were full of crap when I heard you say that. So I thought, I know all kinds of teachers that'd love to be armed. He goes, you're right. There's a lot of teachers that don't want any part of that. And I'm not saying there aren't those that would raise their hand and say, I'll do it.
Sure.
Right? We all know there are. But there's a much higher percentage that want nothing to do with that. And so
they did not sign up for it.
They signed up to teach English and science and math and
Kindergarten. Yes.
Kindergarten. You know, they didn't sign up to be an
No.
armed freaking, you know.
No.
So we don't live in a real world. You know, I watched a video this morning. Some people walked in to rob. It looked like a car dealership or something like that. Stuck a gun in this person's face. The guy standing right next to him, concealed carry. He pulls out the weapon and he puts this guy down. So that's why people say, well, that'll work in schools. Well, then you find out that guy that's in the video, he was a 22-year military veteran.
Right.
He's probably put 30,000 rounds downrange in his life. He was combat deployed 2 or 3 times.
Right.
That's not the same cat we're talking about.
Right. Right.
You know, I mean, and so we can't just have these knee-jerk reactions to how we're going to solve these problems. I'm going to give you the last word. I know we got to get out of here, but I'm going to give you the last word.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, the world just seems to get crazier and crazier. When I feel like we've hit the pinnacle, that something happens that day or the next day that just dials it up a notch. SafeDefend absolutely can make a difference. Right now we're writing more proposals and we're working with more districts than we ever have probably in the history of our company, and we've been around a long time. Yeah. And we absolutely can make a difference, from training to response systems to just overall support of your safety environment. And the time is now, and we've said this again over and over. If not now, when? And you know, our kids' lives. I want my kids coming home every day to me. That's why I started this company. So, you know, challenge your community, challenge your board, challenge your superintendents, and say, hey, look, we need the best for our kids as far as safety, so we can focus on learning at this point. You know, after it, moving forward. So that's what SafeDefend does. That's why we're here. Please reach out to us, contact us. We're here to help.
Well, I said I was going to give you the last word, but you said something that made me want to say this. As you know, Jeff, my wife and I, we lost a child 14 years ago when he was 16 years old. It'll be 14 years here in about 11 days will be the anniversary of his death. And it wasn't to an act of violence. It was to an unknown illness.
Right.
And I know how devastating that has been to our family. And we'll never be the same. And it wasn't an act of violence.
Right. Right.
You know, and I listen. You know, I used to always say, you know, listen, if you lose a child, you lose a child. I'm telling you, losing a child to an act of violence has to be even more. I mean, the grief is horrible no matter what.
Right.
But losing a child to an act of violence has to be the most horrific thing imaginable. And I just, you know, to your point, we're beyond talking. We've got to take action. We've got to do things. I don't want any parent. I mean, you know, on LinkedIn, I had a LinkedIn connection this week that posted that her 21 years old, died suddenly. And, you know, as you know, we've talked about this. I always feel compelled to send those parents a private message, and whether I know them personally or not, to just let them know that, hey, you know, there's, you know, you're not alone. And because there's not a lot you can do. Right.
Right.
But I think that, you know, we've got to take this, we got to treat this for what it is. It's an absolute epidemic, and it's an absolute just blemish in everybody's lives until we figure out a solution to make these people, to make our kids, our employees, the people we love, as safe as possible when they go out to go learn or to go work. I mean, it's insane that we're having these conversations.
Well, and you know what? There is a solution.
Yeah, there is.
There is a solution. So,
well, I encourage everybody, reach out to Jeff. You can reach him at info@safedefend.com, or you can reach him direct at jeff@safedefend.com. You know, please get with him. They're happy to just answer questions. If you're just at a stage where we just don't know what to do next, we don't know, you know, how to move forward, please reach out. We'll help you get on the path to making your loved ones safer. Jeff, as always, we appreciate you. I hope you get some rest today. I know I see you're at the office, so
baseball tournament after work. So,
boy, no rest for the weary. All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon. We thank you all. Please join us again next Friday, 9:30 Central Time for SafeDefend Live.
Take care. Thank you.